So first of all, I'd like to welcome you all into the space. If this is your first time, my name is Tahira, and I work with highly ambitious women, visionary women who are spiritually aware, founders. They have their businesses together and they're looking to build and scale their capacity to hold more. I've been in the healing field for over 20 years. I started out as a clinical therapist, and then I naturally transitioned over to more of the spiritual technologies of healing. I had a school called the Ecology of Shamanism. I ran it for 7 years. It's a very powerful school where I trained healers into different shamanic modalities. And now I have a academy called Sacred and Paid, where this work deepens and generally just helping women, particularly, to move through scarcity patterns that are energetic, that are psychological, that are nervous system related, in order to help build wealth with inside themselves so they can execute it outside of themselves. So it doesn't matter what you're building, what business you're in, particularly, it's all about the capacity. And the reason why I am doing this now, because I have a lot of years running my own business and also a lot of experience. And so thank you all for coming into this space. And what we're going to talk about today is the energetic bodies. And who has already heard about how the nervous system holds a lot of different patterns that either can expand us or shrink us? You could just like give a little thumbs up. Because nervous system work is very powerful. And I'm sure that if you have been looking to really build more capacity within yourself, one of the main techniques is to work on your nervous system. And who has businesses in here or is inspired to have a business? Who are entrepreneurs up in here? Okay, beautiful, beautiful, nice. Very nice. I love women in business. Love you all because it takes a lot of courage to be in business as well as to build longevity in your business. So beautiful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So, a lot of people know about nervous system regulation and how the nervous system holds patterns, and either they create more expansion within your field to receive more, or they shrink you. However, there's not too much talk about the energetic bodies. And so the energetic bodies are a part of our layering too. And if you have studied energy in any way, energy healing, no matter the modality of energy healing, usually there are four bodies that a lot of people talk about, which is the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spirit. However, there are three more that I'm going to present to you all because these three also add a additional way of working in your system in order to really expand and expose the patterns that possibly your system and also unconsciously you're running from. So, who I usually attract is women who are in the process of doing deeper work because they know that there's something a bit off. They're ready to take everything to the next level. And so you're doing the work, but something keeps stopping you. You know what to do, you've done the healing, you've invested in strategy, and still inconsistent. So let me ask you all this. As much as you love what you do you have a challenge of showing up and being consistent? And you give me a thumbs up, or you could put it in the chat. Yes, no, thumbs up. Okay. That's usually a really big one. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for being honest. And so what happens is you feel like you have the discipline, however, you don't show up consistently. And this is a capacity issue because your energetic field determines what can be held if your energetic field is functioning from instability. So if it's functioning instability, no strategy, no matter what you do, and I will say no affirmations, are not going to give you that level of capacity to stay consistent because there's a deeper problem going on in your energetic field. So this is the framework that I teach, which is an energetic framework. And the architecture is all about inner capacity because a lot of people, they like to begin on the outside. People chase the strategy, they chase how much money they want to make, and so forth. However, what's usually missing is the capacity to hold it. So your inner structure determines your outer results. The architecture of capacity maps the seven energetic bodies, the internal systems that determine how much you can receive, hold, and circulate. These systems are measurable, they are trainable. When they are misaligned, they create patterns no business strategy can override. So self sabotage happens, chronic undercharging, inconsistency and visibility, inability to sustain growth once it arrives. So I want to ask you all something. When I say self-sabotage, chronic undercharging, inconsistency in visibility, inability to sustain growth once it arrives, what is the one that speaks to you the most? And be honest. And you could just put it in the chat. Self-sabotage, inability to sustain growth, all of the above. Okay. Growth. Okay. All right. Not showing up. Okay. So this work is grounded in advanced study of energy and consciousness combined with my own expansion because I didn't always show up like this. I used to hide behind my work, and I was also say hide in the shamanic realms of doing deep work with people. So I didn't really show up in a way that I knew that I could hold. And so over time, I really had to work on that internal infrastructure in order to really become visible and allow myself to be seen. And so I've been through self-sabotage for sure and chronic undercharging. A lot of healers, they go through this and they consistently say that they want to make more money, but they consistently undercharge, and then inconsistency and visibility. So this work is grounded in the level of me going through my own experiences, as well as combining spiritual depth and science, because I'm all about combining both. So that way it doesn't stay in the mystical world of spirituality. We could bring it down and have a way of looking at these energetic bodies at a practical level. So it is measurable, it is trainable, it is structural. Okay. So let's look at the seven energetic bodies. I'm not going to read over everything, but I am going to send you all a document as well as some techniques for you to do on your own so you can understand how to start working with your energetic bodies. So you have the physical, which I talked about earlier, the container, your capacity infrastructure, what your nervous system can hold. So your physical body determines how much you can receive, sustain, and execute at any given time. The nervous system regulates this through the vagal tone, the health of the vagus nerve, which directly controls your window of tolerance. High vagal tone means your system can hold more pressure, more opportunity, and more expansion without dysregulating. Low vagal tone creates a capacity ceiling that no amount of strategy or mindset work can override. So over time, this narrows the window of what the body can hold. So two women can sit in the same room, receive the same opportunity, and respond completely different. The difference is often nervous system capacity. Your physical container is built through sleep architecture, which means you need to be getting some rest, breath, movement, nourishment, and consistent regulation practices, not as add ons, but as part of your work. So, as you are scaling, it is so important to implement some type of breathing exercises where you're stopping in the middle of your day, in the middle of task, and really pausing and nourishing your nervous system because as you are scaling, your nervous system is going to be speaking to you. And so when you start wanting to make more money or even generating more money, your nervous system is going to feel like it's being challenged because it has been trained to remain at a certain level of capacity. So a lot of my clients, what they do is that they stop because they're saying, oh, my nervous system doesn't feel in alignment, therefore I'm not ready. But it is important to realize that you shouldn't let your nervous system control you. Your nervous system is not the boss. You are the boss. And so what happens is you start to command your life in that way and command these energetic bodies and say, yes, I understand that this is new, that this is more, but we're going to work together. And you support yourself by implementing breathing exercises and different techniques in order to help regulate and expand. Okay. And then this is another one, and this is possibly something new that you have heard of, which is the protective energetic body, the boundary, field discernment, the intelligence that holds wealth. Your protective layer is the intelligence that determines what enters your field and what doesn't. Neurologically, this is governed by a process called neuroreception, which is your nervous system's unconscious real-time scan of the environment for safety or threat. This happens below conscious awareness, faster than thought. It is why you can walk into a room, meet a potential client, or receive an offer and feel an immediate knowing before your mind has formed a single opinion. And that signal is data. Okay. So when this system has been shaped by survival, overgiving, or unprocessed ancestral patterns, the boundary layer becomes either porous or rigid. So porous means you absorb what isn't yours and attract misaligned clients, underpriced deals, and energy leaks. We see a lot of this in the healing community because part of being a healer is having a shadow. And everyone has a shadow, and that shadow is the rescuer. We want to rescue, we want to serve, we want to help, but you have to be mindful how much you're putting out there and what you are receiving back. In shamanism, it is called law of reciprocity, meaning that whatever it is that I'm putting out there, because it is a part of my energy, I must receive it back in balance. Because without receiving it back in harmony and balance, then I have allowed that energy to dictate my value. And so through this knowingness, again, you have to learn to retrain what the pattern is trying to get you to do. This is where wealth begins to hold your ability to say no to misalignment, the price from value, and to build structures that protect your energy is not a mindset exercise. It actually is the healthy way to protect yourself. And so, again, in the spiritual community, there's this issue around really setting boundaries for yourself and learning just to say no, no matter the problem, no matter how desperate somebody is. You have to check in and say, am I able to hold this and not receive and absorb the energy? Is this in alignment to my worth and what I am giving to somebody? And when I say giving, you're not giving your energy away, but you are giving your time. There's a difference. And so you learn to really protect and honor your energy. And what I tell my clients all the time is when you start to honor that within yourself, you are also telling them to honor that within themselves as well. Okay. So the work at this layer is recalibrating what your system reads as safe so that what you allow in actuality matches what you are building. All right. And then you have the emotional, the signal system, your fastest data processor, where desire and financial shame both live. Emotions are not reactions to be managed. Neurologically, they are data. So neuroscientist Antonio Damasio somatic marker hypothesis established that emotional signals from the body are essential to sound decision making. So one must become emotionally mature and balanced. Without them, people with damage to emotional processing centers become paralyzed by choice, unable to act even with full access to logic and information. Emotion is not the opposite of intelligence because emotions are its own intelligence. It is one of its primary inputs. And so this is why it's so essential to become emotionally mature and not allow the process to impact you to the point where you lose yourself in the emotions. I always say that the emotions are some of the most powerful teachers. Once you're able to sit at that observer seat and be able to see them and feel them for what they are. And technically, emotions are not supposed to last more than like 2, 3 minutes. After 2, 3 minutes, there should be a pass. The emotions should continue to move. Because remember, we're talking about energy. Energy is not to stay dormant, energy is meant to move. So, this is how you know if you are holding on to energy that should be able just to organize itself if you don't become attached to it. Okay. The emotional body processes information faster than the prefrontal cortex can form a thought. This means you felt sense around a pricing decision, a client, or a launch is arriving before your conscious reasoning. When the signal system is layered with financial shame, which lives in the body as a low-grade freeze, contraction, or urgency, it distorts the data. You misread desire as recklessness. You misread caution as wisdom. The signal is still there, but the interpretation has been conditioned by survival. So this is where you are making the decisions, but you see that the decisions are not matching. And it's all based upon this conditioning. So this is the layer where wealth wounds live longest. Financial shame is not a mindset problem. It is a somatic pattern encoded through experience and often inherited through ancestral lineage. So the work at this layer is to learning to distinguish clean emotional data from conditioned noise so that what you feel about money, pricing, and receiving becomes a reliable compass rather than a liability. All right. Now you have the ancestral, the inheritance. Again, this is another body. Lineage patterns that built your financial ceilings before you were born. So the science of epigenics has fundamentally shifted that we understand about inheritance. Before I go any further, who is into or who feels they're connected to their ancestors? Okay, Leah. Anybody else? And I know a lot of people don't think about working with the ancestors when it comes to entrepreneurship and business because it's a quote unquote spiritual thing. However, we have to remember we didn't come here by ourselves. We have blood, we have DNA that has been alchemized in us and has been transferred. And so working with the ancestors in a way that I share is a way of empowering yourself in the medicine of knowing that when you are building wealth, you are breaking the generational curse of ancestral poverty, which some of us do come from. Some of us don't, but some of us do. Okay. So, research pioneered by Dr. Rachel Yehuta on Holocaust survivals and their descendants demonstrated that trauma leaves measurable biological markers on gene expression, markers that are passed to children who never experienced the original event. The descendants carry altered cortisol levels and stress response encoded in their DNA. This means that the financial fear, scarcity conditioning, and survival patterns of your lineage are not just stories you inherited, they are biological instructions running in your body. That's deep. Your ancestors built strategies to survive the conditions they lived in, hiding wealth, shrinking visibility, distrusting abundance, equating money with danger or moral compromise. These strategies were intelligent for their context because at that time, that's how they survived. It carried forward without examination, however. They become the invisible architecture behind self-sabotage, income ceilings, and the inexplicable resistance that shows up right at the edge of a new financial level. So before I go any further, is this the first time you are hearing about this in regards to wealth in capacity and how it's connected to your ancestors? I'm just curious. Or have you heard of this before? Okay, Leah, yes. All right. So this layer is not about blaming. I want to make that very clear. We do not blame our ancestors. We learn to empower ourselves in the medicine of how they showed up, because there's always medicine. And we are the, I don't like to use that word, the, what is that term that I'm looking for? Like we carry the burden. We're not here to carry the burden. We're here to form a new path by making new decisions. And so when you make new decisions, best believe that DNA is going to start speaking to you. Leah's like, yeah, but best believe, and you can't be afraid of that. And so, again, it's about being in that observation of self and seeing who is at the seat and who is running the show, me or something that is telling me, an energy in me that's telling me that I shouldn't go any further. All right. So, again, this is all about empowering ourselves into our ancestral lines. It is about identifying which inherited instructions are still operating as commands in your system and consciously updating them. When you do this work, you're not just shifting your own relationship to wealth, you are rewiring the pattern for the lineage that follows you. So it's very powerful work. Okay. Then you have the mental, the architecture. Narratives and identity construct to shape what you believe you can have. The brain is not a neutral processor, it is a prediction machine. Neuroscientist Carl Friston's worked on predictive processing established that the brain is constantly generating models of reality based on prior experience, then filtering incoming information to confirm those models. This means your mental architecture is not just shaping how you think, it is determining what you are even capable of perceiving as possible. An identity construct that says women like me don't build that kind of wealth does not present as a thought, it presents as reality. And that's what keeps a lot of people stuck, because the brain is literally organizing evidence to support that. And I feel like a lot of people know this information, but it's just giving you more of a different way of looking at the power of our minds. So the reticle activating systems compounds this further. This neural filter prioritizes information that aligns with your dominant beliefs and screens out what contradicts them. So this is where people say, which is true, everything is a belief system. Belief system. So if it's a belief system, then guess what? You have the power to change it. Okay. So two founders can be in the same market with similar offers and have entirely different data about what is available to them, because each is operating through a different mental architecture. And as they say, which is so true, you are the creator or the co-creator of this reality through how you think. The gap is not information, it is the identity construct through which information is received. So the same people can receive the same information. However, it's going to be perceived differently based upon their own belief system. Okay. Then you have spirit, the transmission. This is the connection to divine intelligence, where purpose becomes something people feel. The Heart Math Institute has documented that the heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet outside the body and is detectable by others in close proximity. This field shifts measurably based on internal states, coherence, intention, presence. I always say the most masterful healers, there's nothing mystical going on. It's because they have mastered their nervous system. They know how to regulate themselves. That is key. So there has been separate research on limbic resonance, first outlined in a general theory of love, established that mammals are neurologically wired to attune to each other's internal states. Your nervous system reads the room, and the room reads yours. So what you carry internally transmits before you speak a word. That is truth. I have a retreat center called Oasis in the Mountains here in the Dominican Republic, and people come because they just want to be, and I say this humbly, in my proximity because they feel regulated, they feel safe, they feel like they can just be. And it's not something I'm doing, it just is how I function. It's the frequency, it's training with myself. And so you take that and you apply that into what you're doing in business. You realize that that formula is in everything that you do. And so even though there may be bumps in the road, which there will be bumps in the road, we just had one with the Zoom link, you still show up regulated, prepared, organized, not flustered, because that energy is being alchemized in everything that you do. And so you learn to pause, take a breath, and know that everything is working to organize itself. And this is something that I talk about with my clients. It's another level of understanding that everything has an intelligence to organize itself when you are functioning from spirit. Okay. So this is a layer that cannot be manufactured. You can optimize your messaging, your funnel, your positioning, and still have people feel nothing when they encounter your work. Transmission is what creates the felt sense of your brand. The reason someone watches a video and immediately knows they need to work with you. It is coherence between what you know to be true and what you're willing to stand in, and what your body is actually broadcasting. When those are aligned, your work stops being content and becomes contact. So now you are more intentional with what you are posting because you realize everything has this energy signature. And now that showing up doesn't feel so hard because all you're doing is being yourself. That's all you're doing. Your brand is you. For founders building purpose driven businesses, the spiritual layer is also the most direct access point to non-linear growth. Ideas, strategy, and timing that arrive through stillness often carry more precision than anything engineered through effort. The work at this layer is building and protecting your capacity to receive the intelligence and trusting it enough to act on it with the same rigor you would apply to data. So that is trusting in your intuition, trusting in your vision. When we don't show up for the people that really could benefit from our services, we are also not showing up and not respecting our vision. And so it's a two-way streak. And so this takes me to the final body, which is sovereign, the embodied authority, where all six converge into uncontested self-leadership. So neuroscientist Daniel Siegel defines integration as the coordinating harmonious functioning of differentiating parts of a system. In the brain, integration between regions produce what he describes as the qualities of a regulated and a resilient life. Clarity, coherence, and the capacity to lead from choice rather than reactivity. That is sovereignty. Sovereignty is the lived experience of that integration across every layer of self. So this is beyond the spirit. And a lot of people stop at spirit, especially spirit-led leaders. Because what sovereignty does is, I'm going to just call you out on your shit. You realize you are responsible for you, beloved, as I always say. So that means it is time to take command of your seat, meaning that you are in command of all of the other energetic bodies. So when the physical container is resource, the protective field is discerning. The emotional system is clean. The ancestral patterns are updated. The mental architecture is aligned. And the spiritual connection is active. You stop managing yourself and start operating from wholeness. And wholeness is not perfection. A lot of women have this mindset loop around showing up perfect, which also stops them from showing up. Right? And there is no such thing as perfection. Like I said, I am very organized. I had marketed and launched, this level of event, and turns out there wasn't no Zoom link. And I didn't know till the last minute. But guess what? I still showed up. I still showed up happy because you all are here. And I'm like, hey, whoever's supposed to be in this space will come on in. So that is functioning from wholeness. And if you have a business, you're going to make mistakes, especially when you are doing many tasks. But that's all part of having a business and, quite honestly, life. Okay? So you embrace the mistakes as lessons and you keep it moving. So this is where authority becomes uncontested because it is no longer being undermined from within. Most leadership development focuses on external skill building while leaving internal fragmentation intact. The result is performance layered over dysregulation. And this is where you see a lot of burnout. And it has a ceiling because they can't hold it. Embodied authority has no ceiling because it is not built on suppression or compensation. It is built on coherence. So, for the women in this work, sovereignty is not a destination you arrive at once. Because I know the word sovereignty has been thrown around. It is a standard you return to and build from consistently. It is a way of life. And so it's not about getting rid of the spirit. It's acknowledging that the spirit also needs what? Structure. And that's where that sovereignty comes in, understanding that you have the power to command your life the way you see fit. So the decisions made from this state carry a different quality, less second guessing, less apologizing, less contraction around money and visibility, and the client feels it. Pricing reflects it. The business becomes a structural expression of it. This is what it means to lead from the inside out. And you want to show up in a way for your people, for your community, regulated and sovereign. Because no matter if you are telling them, and I say this all the time, you could tell them until their ears turn blue that you are not leading them, you are simply a guide. They're still going to look to you as a leader because they are seeing something in you that is inspiring them. And so what you realize, you have a responsibility there. Okay. So I want to just take a break because I know that's a lot of information, and go just through an exercise when it comes to the physical body. And what I would like for you to do is place one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. Take a slow inhale in for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And keep your hands where they are at. Does your body feel like it's bracing? Collapsed? Or present? And observe it without any judgment. And that state you just checked into, that is your current capacity. Everything you're trying to build is being filtered through it. And again, you don't judge. You take it and you file it as information. And when you're ready, just release your hands down and just take a breath. So the sequence is systematic and there is an order. So I always tell people, yes, nature is wild in her own right. And there's still order in nature. And there are layers that cannot be skipped that you must earn access to. And this is all internal. So you have the regulate body, which is you establish safety and nervous coherence. You have the protection field, maintain energetic boundaries and integrity. Open feeling, allow emotions to surface and be witnessed. And then you metabolize lineage, process inherited patterns, and release. And this sequence goes out until you reach that level of the sovereign body. Okay. So each layer unlocks the next. The sequence is not optional, it is architectural. I always say, when I went to Egypt for the first time and I'm looking at the pyramid and I'm just like, it's magnificent, in video, but I'm talking about being there and seeing the perfection, if you will, of the formula and the math of how they built the pyramid. That is masterful architecture. And we have that same technology inside of ourselves if we slow down and learn to work with it. So when you learn to slow down and learn to work with it, you stop hustling because your coherence creates attraction. So therefore, you don't need to hustle. You don't need to chase. You set prices without flinching. Clarity communicates value before you even speak. So therefore, when you are clear and people who have been engaging in your content, when they see that you have something that they could benefit from, they buy. It's that simple because you have already built trust by staying consistent and being clear with your message. Then you lead without performing. Authority radiates from your field. You walk into a room and people can feel that confidence. Confidence is actually very silent. So they feel that. And people who are looking for that gravitate to you naturally. And then you receive without sabotage. Your container holds what arrives. So you receive more income, you know how to distribute it. You have systems that you direct your income, business bank accounts. You have the internal infrastructure within your business to sustain what is being received. Automated systems set up. Accountant. All those things matter. So, as we're getting into the financial patterns, we're talking about that. We're going to do ancestral plus mental body. We're going to trace the origin. And you can write this down or you can say it in the chat if you feel comfortable. Okay. So think of a financial pattern you keep repeating. And that could be undercharging, inconsistency, giving money away before it lands. Now ask, who in my lineage lived this exact pattern? Don't overthink it. The first person who comes to mind is information. Again, trust your intuition. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, I don't know. Then most likely it's coming from an ancestral pattern that was before you and before your family members that you know of. And that is information as well when you can't really pinpoint the exact person. So that pattern was likely installed before you were born. Your nervous system inherited it. Your mental body built a story around it. And you've been trying to fix it with strategy. So this is why mindset work alone doesn't hold. The origin is ancestral. Okay. And that's just giving you more information. I am going to send out practical ways for you to work at a intimate level when it comes to working with your energetic bodies. However, if you're interested in working with me, again, my background is also part of being a clinical therapist. And one of the interventions I was trained in was called EMDR. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Who has heard of this before? Okay. So it is a clinical intervention that was created back in the 90s by another clinical therapist, psychologist named Francine Shapiro. And it was through her own experience where she was walking through a forest one day and she was processing something that she began to actually go back and forth with her eyes and was actually to actually generate a process where she was actually able to move beyond that perspective and rewrite the narrative of whatever it was that she was working through. She wrote it down, they did studies, and they also brought the vets home during that time, and the results are powerful. Okay. And so that work is something that I do in a scarcity recalibration. It's a 4-week live container for those ready to address the nervous system roots of financial inconsistency now. So the next round is May 6th through the 27th. We meet on Wednesdays and we meet about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending upon the process. And so if you secure your spot today, you could secure it for 166.50, and that will expire April 15th. You have the QR code here. You're more than welcome to scan the code and you let me know if you have any questions. Okay. And if you don't mind, Leah is a part of my container. Did you want to share anything from your process so far? She's part of the first container that I opened up a couple weeks ago.
I'd love to share. So, as Tahira mentioned, I am in the scarcity recalibration container. We had our first session last Wednesday, and for me, it's just I've always had like a level of awareness that I had like these programs running in the background, but I was never able to access them to the EMDR in Tahira's container. So, like, I strongly recommend that, like, if you have awareness, but you still have like programs running in the background and like you don't know how to access them to provide relief for yourself and also be in a group where you feel really supported to work through this, I would recommend joining Tahira's container.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. And then path two is the trip to Egypt. And that trip is definitely more of an immersive experience. And we'll say it's a pilgrimage because it really is. And it also I teach about the energetic bodies at a deeper layer where you become certified and actually be able to take this work into your own healing modalities as well. Okay, so that is path two. And that is something that you would just email me in regards to finding out more information about that. Okay. So again, with path one, uh, it is a 4-week live container. Week one is the origin, where scarcity began, early imprints, identity contraction. Week two, the pattern, how it shows up, emotional and nervous system loops. Week three, the regulation, rewiring responses, building internal safety with money. And then week four is the recalibration. So therefore, you come into the new identity, expanded wealth capacity, and stabilized action. And then with path two, the temple code certification plus Egypt pilgrimage, you get Kemetic healing certification, learn ancient Egyptian energy healing, which does involve the energetic bodies. And then we also go through a very extensive pilgrimage, many temples, many activations, guided ceremonies. And we are also going to do what is called a habia, which is a boat ride down the Nile. And so I added that in for this year. I want to close the space by coming into the sovereign body. Understand that the sovereign body is all about coming into that command of self, and it is noticing what happens in your body when you say certain things. And so when your price is stated, when your boundaries haven't been enforced, a desire you haven't claimed, you start to really understand how these energies control you, and you learn to take control back. Okay. And so again, you have the scarcity recalibration that starts May 6th. Investment is $333. And then you have the temple code plus Egypt pilgrimage. It's application based, and that's upon uh, you contacting me, and I will send you more information about that. If you are ready to join the scarcity recalibration, that is the QR tag. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time and your effort of coming into this space. All right. Thank you.